Memories of an old man. I am an old man now. My hair is grey, and my face has many lines. But I remember my teenage years very well. I often think about those days. Those days were hard for me, but they taught me many lessons. When I was young, no one believed in me. My father would say, "You are lazy. You will fail in life." My mother would say, "You are wasting your time." Even my brothers and sisters laughed at me. They thought I could not do anything right. I felt alone in my own home. I hated school. I did not like sitting in a classroom. The teacher would talk, but I did not understand. My grades were always bad. I felt like I did not belong there. I would look out of the window and dream of a different life. I wanted to run away and do something exciting. At home, my father was always angry with me. "Why don't you study?" he shouted. "Do you want to stay poor forever?" My mother tried to calm him down, but it didn't help. I stayed quiet. I wanted to say, "I don't know what I want in life," but I was afraid to speak. One day my father said, "You are useless. You will never succeed." His words hurt me deeply. That night I lay in bed and cried. I thought, maybe he is right. Maybe I will fail. But deep inside, I wanted to prove him wrong. I wanted to show everyone that I was not useless. The next morning, I made a decision. I decided to find work. I wanted to show my father that I could do something. I wanted him to be proud of me. So I walked to the town. My heart was full of hope, but I was also very scared. I didn't know if anyone would give me a chance. The road to town was long and my feet hurt, but I kept walking. I told myself, "Don't give up. This is just the beginning." When I reached the town, I saw people everywhere. Some were selling things, some were working, and some were just walking around. I thought, maybe I can find something to do here. In the town, I saw a bakery. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. I was hungry, but I had no money. I stood outside the bakery, watching people go in and out. Then the baker saw me. He was a big man with a kind face. He opened the door and asked, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I am looking for work. Do you need help?" He looked at me for a moment and then said, "Come inside." I followed him into the bakery. The warmth of the ovens made the room feel cosy. There were loaves of bread, cakes, and cookies on the shelves. I'd never seen so much food before. The baker said, "I need someone to clean the floors and wash the trays. Can you do that?" I nodded quickly and said, "Yes, I can." He handed me a broom and showed me where to start. I worked hard that day. I swept the floors, cleaned the trays, and even helped carry bags of flour. My arms were tired, but I felt proud. At the end of the day, the baker gave me a loaf of bread. He said, "You worked well. Come back tomorrow." I smiled and thanked him. That was the first time someone believed I could do something right. I carried the bread home and gave it to my mother. She looked surprised and asked, "Where did you get this?" I told her about the job at the bakery. She smiled for the first time in a long time. My father, however, said nothing. He just looked at me and went to bed. I felt sad, but I told myself, this is only the start. I will work harder." The next morning I went back to the bakery. The baker taught me how to knead dough and make bread. It was not easy, but I liked it. I felt useful for the first time. The baker would say, "You are learning fast. Keep it up." His words made me happy. Days turned into weeks. I worked every day and saved the money the baker gave me. My body became stronger and my confidence grew. I started to think, maybe I can do more. Maybe I am not useless after all. For the first time in my life, I began to dream of a better future. One day, as I was working in the bakery, a teacher came in. She was from my old school. I recognized her, but she didn't recognize me at first. She looked at me and said, "You're the boy who used to sit in the back of the class, aren't you?" I nodded, feeling a little ashamed. "Yes, that was me," I said. She smiled and replied, "I remember you. You were quiet, but I always thought you had potential." Her words surprised me. No one had ever said that before. The baker heard her and said, "He is one of my best workers. He is strong and learns quickly." I felt proud when he said that. The teacher looked at me and said, "You should think about studying again. You are capable of much more than you know." Her words stayed with me. That night, I sat in my small room and thought about school. I hated it before, but now it felt different. Maybe I could try again. Maybe I could prove everyone wrong. I decided to talk to the teacher the next time I saw her. The next week, she came back to the bakery. I gathered all my courage and asked, "How can I start school again?" She smiled and said, "Come to my class tomorrow after work. I will help you." Her kindness gave me hope. The first day back at school was hard. The other students stared at me. I was older than them, and I felt out of place. But the teacher was patient. She gave me simple lessons to start with. "Take it one step at a time," she said. "You can do this." Every evening after working in the bakery, I went to her class. I learned to read better, write clearly, and solve math problems. It was not easy, but I didn't give up. The teacher always encouraged me. She would say, "You are improving. Keep going." Months passed, and I began to see changes. I could read signs in the street. I could write my own name without mistakes. I even helped the baker with his accounts. I felt smarter, stronger, and more confident. I realized that I was not the same boy who hated school. The teacher's belief in me changed everything. I started to believe in myself, too. I knew there was still a long way to go, but for the first time I was ready to face the challenge. The days turned into weeks, and I kept going to the teacher's class. My life became very busy. I worked at the bakery in the morning, and I studied in the evening. Some nights I was so tired that I could hardly keep my eyes open. But I didn't stop. One evening, the teacher gave me a book. It was a simple story about a boy who wanted to fly. She said, "Read this. It's not too hard, and I think you will like it." At first, I was scared. I had never read a whole book before. That night, I sat down with the book. The first few pages were difficult. I read slowly, and sometimes I had to stop and look at the words carefully. But as I kept reading, something amazing happened. I started to enjoy the story. The boy in the book was like me. People didn't believe in him, but he didn't give up. He worked hard and followed his dream. By the time I finished the book, I felt inspired. I wanted to be like that boy. I wanted to prove to myself that I could achieve something. The next day, I told the teacher that I had finished the book. She smiled and said, "I knew you could do it. Now, let's find another one." Every week, she gave me a new book. Some were short and some were long, but each one taught me something new. One afternoon at the bakery, a customer came in and asked me to write something for her. She didn't know how to write, and she needed help. I wrote a short note for her, and when she read it, she said, "Thank you, your handwriting is so nice." Her words made me feel proud. I realized that I was helping people, even in small ways. It gave me more confidence to keep learning. Every time I read a new book or solved a math problem, I felt stronger. One day the teacher said, "You should take an exam. It will show how much you have learned." At first I was nervous. What if I failed? What if I wasn't ready? But she said, "Don't worry about failing, just try your best." So I prepared for the exam. I studied every evening, reading books and practicing problems. The baker noticed how hard I was working. He said, "You are a hard worker. I'm sure you'll do well." His words gave me hope. When the day of the exam came, I was scared but excited. I sat in the classroom with other students and did my best. I didn't know if I would pass, but I felt proud of myself for trying. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had a future. The day after the exam, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept replaying the questions in my mind. Did I do enough? Did I make too many mistakes? The wait for the results felt like forever. At the bakery, I worked harder than ever. I needed to keep my mind busy. Every loaf of bread I baked and every order I delivered gave me a small break from my worries. The baker noticed my anxious face and said, "Don't worry, son. Hard work always pays off." Finally, the day came when the results were announced. My heart was racing as I opened the letter. At first, I couldn't believe my eyes. I had passed. My marks were not perfect, but they were good enough. I showed the letter to the teacher, and she hugged me. "I'm so proud of you," she said. When I told my family, they were surprised. My father, who had always doubted me, looked at the letter and smiled for the first time in years. My mother wiped her tears and said, "You've made us proud." Even my brothers, who used to tease me, gave me a pat on the back. This small success gave me a big dream. I didn't just want to work at the bakery. I wanted to do more with my life. I wanted to continue learning, to grow, and to help others who were like me. The teacher suggested that I try for a scholarship. She explained that it would allow me to study without worrying about money. I didn't think I could get it, but she said, "You'll never know unless you try." So I filled out the forms and submitted them. The waiting started again, but this time I wasn't as nervous. I kept reading books, helping customers at the bakery, and improving myself. Every day I felt a little more confident. One sunny afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from the scholarship office. My hands were shaking as I opened it. The first line said, "Congratulations." I couldn't believe it. I had been chosen for the scholarship. The baker clapped me on the back and said, "You're going places, kid." The teacher smiled with pride and said, "I always knew you had it in you." And my parents, who once thought I would never succeed, started calling me the scholar of the family. That day, I realized something important. Success isn't just about being smart or lucky. It's about not giving up, even when things seem impossible. It's about finding people who believe in you and working hard every single day. The scholarship changed everything for me. I moved to the city to study, and I felt both excited and scared. The city was big and loud. I missed my small village, but I knew I had to stay strong. The first few days were hard. I didn't know anyone, and the work was tough. I had to learn many new things, and sometimes it felt like I would never catch up. But every time I felt like giving up, I remembered my teacher's words, "Hard work always pays off." I spent long hours studying in the library. It was quiet, and I could focus better there. The books were my friends, and I loved reading them. Every time I learned something new, I felt proud of myself. At first, the other students didn't pay much attention to me. They were busy with their own lives. But over time, they started to notice how hard I worked. Some of them even asked me for help with their studies. I was happy to share what I knew. One day, I saw the teacher who had believed in me so many years ago. She was visiting the city for a conference, and she wanted to see how I was doing. When she saw me, she smiled and said, "I knew you would make it." It felt good to hear those words. She had always believed in me, even when no one else did. I thanked her for all her support. By the time I finished my studies, I'd become a different person. I was more confident, and I had learned so much. I didn't just want to be successful for myself, I wanted to help others, just like the teacher had helped me. I went back to my village to visit my family. My father was proud of me, and my mother said, "You've done more than we ever expected." My brothers, who once doubted me, now looked up to me. I realized that life is not easy. There are many challenges along the way, but with hard work, a little faith, and the right people to support you, anything is possible. Looking back, I can see how far I've come. I never gave up, even when I was told I would never succeed. I was a teenager who didn't believe in myself, but today I am a man who knows that anything is possible if you work hard enough. And now, when I look at young people with big dreams, I smile and think, if I can do it, so can you.